Hello everyone, hope you're all having a good Wednesday evening. It's 11:34 p.m. Sorry about the delay of preparing this exam review. This is going to be exam review 1 for our A&P II class. I usually don't do exam reviews, but however, I decided that this term, since everything going on with COVID and us not being in class, that I was going to do an exam review again. This is not a lecture that I'm going to be doing. I'm not going to be going over the materials and teaching you the material. It's more of a guide, and I'm going to be referring you to 3 different documents every time, or different documents, and making references. So the references that I'll be making as I go through the questions are going to be references to lecture notes, references that I'm going to be making. These are going to be specific references to lecture notes, to supplemental notes, and on a few questions I'm going to make references to specific pages of the lecture text reading, which are all posted on weekly basis on Blackboard, as you can see. So there are going to be 40 multiple choice questions, A, B, C, and D. 10 it's roughly divided into 10 questions from each section, but there are more questions on the heart section and less question on blood vessels, and more question on lymphatic, literally around no question on the immune system, but 1 or 2 maybe. And lastly, there are questions about blood. So because we are going to cover, as I go through the questions I've tried to group them together. As you start, it's going to be blood, and then heart, and then vessels, and then lymphatic system, but I might be jumping around, so bear with me. What I would recommend for you to do right now is have a pen or a pencil ready, have something to take notes with, piece of paper. As I'm going through the questions, I'm going to be giving you references to go directly to that specific section of the page. I'm not going to just tell you to go to like read chapter 4 of the lecture notes, or read chapter 4 of the text reading. I'm going to be making a specific references. Okay. With me doing this, I have decided that this is going to be really helpful to you guys if you watch it all the way through. And I'm gonna, usually what I used to do is for 40 multiple choice question, I would give you 400 minutes to complete it. However, it's gonna be, since I'm doing an exam review session right now, I'm gonna cut that time down to 90 minutes. My questions, as I said, is multiple choice questions. You're only going to be allowed 1 attempt, 90 minutes. There is no lockdown browser. I do not require a lockdown browser, because a lot of the questions that you will see, you will not be able to. I do realize I used to be a student myself, and I do realize a lot of students, what they do is basically copy the question and paste it in the search bar in Google and do a quotation mark, and believe it or not, you would get the question and you would get the answer to that question. I have made sure that all 40 questions that I am using, none of them can be found anywhere in Google or any of the search platforms. So that's why I don't require you guys to use a lockdown browser. Okay, let's get started. We're gonna start with the lymphatic system. The first question that I have selected, it has to do with definitely know where lymphatic vessels empty into. So basically, ultimately, lymphatic vessels, they empty into 2 large collecting structures. The first one, the right, is the right hepatic duct, which drains the right half of the body, superior to the diaphragm. And then the other structure, which is the thoracic duct, collect the lymph from the lower abdomen, pelvis, and lower limb. So basically, the two structures that the lymphatic vessels empty into are the right lymphatic duct and the thoracic duct. And no further, I would refer you to page 4 of lymphatic text reading. When you open up the text document, it's a PDF file, as you can see. When you open it up on the PDF, it's going to say, if you scroll down, it's going to be page 4. On the actual page, it's going to be page 474. So page 4 of the lymphatic text reading is same as page 474 of the text. And also, I would refer you for this question, I would refer you to page 2 of lymphatic lecture notes. Page 2 of lymphatic lecture notes. So the question is going to be asking, definitely know where the lymphatic vessels empty to, the structures. The next question that I have asked is basically composition of lymph. Definitely know the composition of lymph and be able to compare it to composition of plasma. I would refer you to page 2 of lymphatic supplemental notes for that section where it says flow of the lymph. When you go to page 2 of lymphatic supplemental notes, there's a section that talks about the flow of the lymph. And also I would refer you to page 3 of lymphatic text reading. So open up the text document, the lymphatic text reading document, scroll down to page 3, which corresponds to page 473. So for question 2, I want you to know the composition of lymph and be able to compare it to composition of plasma. Okay? You can find the answer to this question. You can find this question, what I'm asking about this question, on page 2 of lymphatic supplemental notes and page 3 of lymphatic text reading, which corresponds to page 473 of the lymphatic text reading as well. Next question, question 3. I'm asking you to describe the structure and function of lymph nodes. Very simple, straightforward question. It's the easiest question out of the 40 questions. Describe the structure and function of the lymph nodes. I would refer you further to page 2 of lymph supplemental notes and page 3 of lymph lecture notes, objective C. Page 2 of lymph supplemental notes and page 3 of lymph lecture notes, objective C. Next question that I have asked is about B cells. How do B cells respond to antigens? Okay, specifically B cells. Okay. Refer to page 8 of lymphatic system supplemental notes, page 8 of lymph supplemental notes, and also page 20 of lymph text reading, which corresponds to page 490, and look at figure 14-14. It tells you specifically the following about how B cells respond to antigen. Next question is going to be about, basically, we are still in the lymphatic system. I'm going to ask you to describe the structure. No, this was question 3, sorry. Question 5. Mechanism of non-specific defense. Mechanism of non-specific defense. also called body's innate defense. So when we're talking about non-specific defense, in parentheses, we can also call it the body's innate defense. This I would refer you to page 5 and 6 of lymphatic lecture notes, and specifically to page 12, corresponding to page 482 of lymphatic text reading. Look at figure 14-9. Look at figure 14-9. It's going to go through all different mechanisms of non-specific defense. Basically, the question that I'm asking is which of the following is not part of non-specific defense. And as I just told you, if you go to page 12 of the lymphatic text reading, you're going to see under figure 14-9 all the A, B, C, D, the mechanisms of defense, of the innate defense, of non-specific defense. And make sure to read that and study that for this question. Okay, next question. Next question is very, very simple. We're going to blood now. This question is a blood question. Make sure you know the features and functions of different white blood cells. Specifically, neutrophils, eosinophils, basophils, lymphocytes, and monocytes. Going to refer you to page 4 of blood supplemental notes. You should be good. If you read that page, there is a diagram. Read that diagram, page 4 of blood supplemental notes. The question is about one of them. It's about the function of a specific white blood cell. Next question, again going back to lymphatic, is about similarities and differences between T cells and B cells. Similarities and differences between T cells and B cells. Read page 6 through 9 of lymphatic supplemental notes. Okay? And you should get that question. Remember the difference and similarities. The question that I've asked is basically, how are they similar to one another? How are T cells and B cells similar? They both secrete a specific thing. And if you go to page 6 through 9 of lymphatic supplemental notes, you will see that both B cells and T cells, they secrete antibodies. So that's the main similarities between them, okay? Next question, guys. Next question. Next question, lymphatic again. Make sure you're familiar with memory cells of immune system. Make sure you're familiar with memory cells of immune system. I would refer you to page 7 of Lymph Lecture Notes, section 17.19. Page 7 of Lymph Lecture Notes, section 17.19. And also, if you need more emphasis on the question in another form to see what memory cell of the immune system does, also I will refer you to page 8 of Lymph supplemental notes. So the first one was page 7 of Lymph Lecture Notes, section 17.19, and the next section was page 8 of Lymph supplemental notes. Okay, next question. Again, we are This is just question. We are still talking about lymphatic system and immunity. How do antibodies work and their different mechanisms? Different mechanisms of how antibodies work. Very easy, very easy. If you go to page 8 of Lymph supplemental notes, it has A, B, C, D, different mechanisms of how antibodies work. Okay? Again, I would love to go into details and tell you how they work, give you each one, but then we are talking about, this is an exam review, this is not a lecture, you know. I wish we had class times. I wish I could teach these to you guys in person, but we have to do the readings and do it this way. Oh, also one thing that I wanted to mention, from now on, starting this week, I'm gonna start posting my lecture slides. They can be very helpful, and here on forth, from this week on, I'm gonna start posting my lecture slides. And by the end of the video, if you see this video was useful to you guys, let me know and email me or comment. I'm gonna post this on YouTube. Comment or let me know if you want me to keep doing this for the next exam and the exam after that and the exam after and the final exam. I'll be more than happy to do this and to offer this, rather than you telling you guys just to read something and then curve the grades and give you 400 minutes. I think this is a better idea for me to actually do a live session exam review, a recorded session exam review. Okay, I lost track. Which question was I on? Talked about memory cells. Okay, mechanisms of how antibodies work. Page 8 of Lymph supplemental notes for that question. Okay, guys? Next question. Make sure you're familiar with classes of antibodies. IgG, IgM, IgA, IgE, IgD, specifically IgG. I'm going to ask a question about that, IgG. Okay? Page 7 of lymphatic lecture notes. I want you to see section 17.17. So, classes of antibodies, there are many classes of antibodies, IgG, IgM, IgA, IgE, IgD. Specifically, the question might be on IgG. So go to page 7 of lymphatic lecture notes and look at section 17.17, page 7 of lymphatic lecture notes, section 17.17, and look through the description of IgG, guys. Next question is a blood question. Very easy, very simple. I want you to know what hematocrit is. What is hematocrit? Go to page 3 of your blood lecture notes, section 14.3. Read the definition, understand the definition of what is hematocrit. Page 3 of blood lecture notes, section 14.3. Okay? Next questions. Again, we were still in blood, so you see we have transitioned from lymph to blood now. It's gonna be description of erythrocytes. Description of erythrocytes or features of erythrocytes. Remember, mature erythrocyte cells do not have a nucleus, okay? The shape of erythrocyte is biconcave, biconcave disc. It's like a disc, biconcave disc. Sorry, my computer went to sleep mode. Okay, so description of erythrocytes. Major thing about erythrocytes. Mature cells of erythrocytes do not have a nucleus. Their shape is biconcave disc, and they usually are produced when there is a decrease in oxygen level of body tissues. Erythrocyte production begins. Okay? Now, to emphasize more, go for this question. I'm going to refer you to page 2 of blood supplemental notes and page 4 of blood lecture notes. So be familiar with features and descriptions of erythrocytes. Next question. Major question when we study blood is pathway of blood clotting. Okay, when you go to if you go to graduate school and nursing, medical school, dental, pharmacy, you will study this more in detail. But for our purposes, be familiar with the pathways of blood clotting in general, intrinsic and extrinsic. I would refer you to page 6 of blood lecture notes, objective F, figure 14.5. Okay? Be familiar with figure 14.5, which is on page 6 of blood lecture notes. Next question. We already went over this, but it's another question. I want you to be able to compare the 5 types of leukocytes. I want you to be able to compare the 5 types of leukocytes and know which one is the most common one. Okay? Go to page 8 of blood lecture notes. Look at table 14.3. You will see all the different leukocytes. Okay? And as it has list all different ones, look at the numbers and it tells you which one is the most common one. Which one is the most. Okay, next question. Next question is factors that are involved in final common pathway of clotting. I'm going to read it again. Know the factors that are involved in final common pathway of clotting. Final common pathway of clotting is basically where prothrombin is converted to thrombin, which converts fibrinogen to fibrin. Okay? That's the final pathway. And what activates the final pathway? The extrinsic pathway. But I'm not asking anything about the extrinsic pathway. My question is about the factors that are involved in the final common pathway of clotting. And I just named 4. Prothrombin is converted to thrombin, which converts fibrinogen to fibrin. So these 4 are the factors that play in the final common pathway of clotting. In order for the final common pathway of clotting to get activated, it needs extrinsic pathway. I'm going to refer you to page 7 of blood lecture notes for this question. Next question. Pretty easy, common question. Different causes of anemia. I want you to know the different causes of anemia. Go to page 3 of blood lecture notes, table 14.1. Next question. Want you to know the components of blood plasma proteins, mainly. Components of blood plasma. And look at components of blood plasma. Specifically, I want you to know the components of plasma proteins. Okay? Plasma protein is part of blood plasma. It has its own components too. For that, go to page 8 of blood lecture notes, objective H. H as Harry. Next question. Basically, I'm asking about erythropoiesis. What increases erythropoiesis? This is a very important concept and very important question. What increases erythropoiesis? Go to page 4 of blood lecture notes. I want you to look at sections 14.7 and 14.8. Again, what increases erythropoiesis? Page 4 of blood lecture notes and see sections 14.7 and 14.8. The answer is very simple. Basically, it's hypoxia increases erythropoiesis, guys. Okay, remember that the main stimulus for erythropoietins to be released is hypoxia, and it's a negative feedback. I'm sure you learned about negative feedback in A&P I, but you'll see more about it if you go to page 14 of blood lecture notes, section 14.7 and 14.8. Next question. Need you to explain function of platelets. Explain function of platelets. What's the function of platelets? Okay, what's the role that platelets play in blood clotting? I would refer you to page 5 of your blood lecture notes, objective E, section 14.12. Okay, 14.12. Okay, now we are going to get to the heart. Get to the heart. Main thing, definitely a question, always a question. Any professor will put this on an exam. This is a giveaway. Sequence of blood flow through the heart. Very general. I'm not going to go into a specific. Know the general sequence of blood flow through the heart to be able to select A, B, C, or D. You don't have to write it down. It's not an essay question. It's A, B, C, or D that you're going to select. I would refer you to second page of heart supplemental notes. Page 2 of heart supplemental notes for that question. Next question is, how specifically does the structure of cardiac muscle differs from a skeletal muscle? There is one specific thing about cardiac muscle that makes it different from a skeletal muscle. I'm sure you have learned this in A&P I, but it's this one feature of cardiac muscle is very important that a skeletal muscle does not have. I would refer you to page 13 of heart text reading. So the heart text reading document that I have posted, open that PDF file, scroll down to page 13, which corresponds to page 717. And you will see it has a picture there, and it tells you what specifically is the structural difference of cardiac muscle as compared to a skeletal muscle. Next question. Again, we are talking about the heart. Definitely, we have to talk about the valves. Know the valves of the heart. Know their location. Know their structure and their function. Best way, I'm going to refer you to page 4 of Heart Lecture Notes. Table 15.2 should be sufficient enough to answer the question. There are 2 questions on this. Page 4 of Heart Lecture Notes, Table 15.2, list all the valves, their location, their structure, and their function. So definitely look into that, study it, memorize it. It's very important. And there are questions on it. Again, page 4 of Heart Lecture Notes, Table 15.2. We are halfway through, guys. Halfway through. Next question. Describe coronary circulation. Describe coronary circulation. Circulation of the heart. How does heart get its oxygen? How does heart receive its own oxygen blood supply? I want you to know that. Very general. Is it through what artery does it? Is it a vein? Is it an artery? Is it a sinus? So what is it? Refer you to page 4 of Heart Supplemental Notes and also page 6 of Heart Lecture Notes, Objective G. G as God. Next question is about cardiac cycle. And you should be able to describe major events of cardiac cycle. Major events of cardiac cycle. And for that, I would refer you specifically to page 8 of Heart Lecture Notes, Objective J, Table 15.3. Table 15.3. And also page 12 and 13 of Heart Supplemental Notes. It's about asking you to describe major events of cardiac cycle. That's a very common concept, very important concept for you to know. I'm sure a lot of you already know it. If you have studied it, it's the bulk of this chapter. Okay. Next question is about. I have asked a question about the sound, the stethoscope, the lub-dub sound. Lub-dub sound. Remember, what's that lub sound? L-U-B, the first sound. The lub sound is the louder one. It's the first louder sounds. It's produced by closing of the AV valve, atrioventricular valve. That's the lub. And then the dub sound is the second sound, and it's produced by closing of the semilunar valve. I would refer you, I think if you took notes on that I just said about lub and then about dub, you should be able to answer the question. But if you want to read about it further, I would say go to page 5 of Heart Lecture Notes, section 15.9. Page 5 of Heart Lecture Notes, page 5, section 15.9. Know the lub-dub sound. The lub sound is the closing of the AV valve. The dub sound is the second sound. It's the closing of the semilunar valve. Okay, next. Let me see. Let's see where I am. Okay, we're almost done here. Definitely know the effects of norepinephrine and acetylcholine on the heart, the sympathetic and parasympathetic, and we're not going to go into much details in that section, but definitely effects of norepinephrine and acetylcholine on the heart. I'm going to specifically refer you to page 8 of the heart lecture notes and read section 15.12. Read section 15.12. Definitely know which one releases acetylcholine and which one releases the norepinephrine, okay? Which one supplies? Is it the sympathetic that supplies the acetylcholine, or is it the parasympathetic that supplies the acetylcholine? Remember, parasympathetic always supplies acetylcholine to the heart. I just gave away the answer there. Next question is, there's one simple question about electrocardiogram, which is ECG. A lot of you have probably had that done at the hospitals, at doctors' offices, and so ECG, definitely know P waves, T waves, PR interval, and the QRS complex. And know which one of the ones that I just said, P wave, T wave, PR interval, or QRX complex, which is generated by the ventricular excitation. So when the ventricular excitation happens, which one is generated? I would refer you to page 10 of Heart lecture notes, objective K. Next question, very simple. It's asking about the location of baroreceptors on the heart. Location of baroreceptors. I would refer you to page 14 of Heart supplemental notes. Page 14 of Heart supplemental notes. Next question, very important. I want you to know the difference, or at least the definition, of cardiac output and a stroke volume. Cardiac output is basically heart rate times the stroke volume. But on the question that I have asked is about the definition of one of them. And I want to refer you to page 29 of Heart text reading. And the question that I have asked is about what is the definition of a stroke volume. A stroke volume, guys, is the amount of blood that is pumped in one heartbeat. Okay? It's the amount of blood ejected from the ventricles with each cardiac cycle. That's stroke volume. Okay? I just gave you the definition. And that you can also read more about it on page 29 of Heart text reading. We're getting to the end. Capillaries. There is a question about function of capillaries. Function of capillaries and what gets exchanged at the capillary site. I want to refer you to page 2 of blood vessel supplemental notes. Page 2 of blood vessel supplemental notes. Last question is about the heart. I want you to know the vessels. I want you to know that blood leaves the heart through which vessel? Through which vessels? Blood leaves the heart through which vessels? And then blood enters the heart through which vessels? Okay? The vessels that carry blood to the heart and vessels that carry blood away from the heart. I'm going to refer you to page 2 and 3 of Heart Supplemental Notes. Okay, guys, that should do it. I have nearly covered every single question. Might have missed one or two, but same concept. I believe if you watched this video and took notes and then go back to the sections that I have told you to go back to study, and some of them I just gave away the definitions and basically it gave you some hints, very close hints. It would be very helpful. Definitely watch this before you take the exam. As soon as I upload this onto YouTube, I'm gonna email you out the link and I'm gonna make the exam available. Because I posted this video so late, it's 12:16 a.m. right now, Thursday morning. I will go ahead and make the exam available right away. You will have until next Thursday at 12 a.m. to complete the exam, to submit the exam. So 40 questions, 90 minutes, one attempt, no lockdown browsers, all multiple choice. Missed anything? From now on, I'm gonna start posting my PowerPoint slides from previous years that I have done. A lot of students said that they are very helpful when you are studying. And also, if you want me to keep doing these exam review videos, if you found this helpful by any means, please let me know. So I would go ahead and make another video hopefully sooner for exam 2 because this was last minute for exam 1 and out of when I put it up for a vote, out of 22, 15 of you said yes and the rest of you didn't even vote. Nobody said no. But anyhow, thank you. You guys have a good morning, I guess. Take care.